Bezos Hashem. Today's daf is Masechta Bava Kamma Daf Tzadik Vav. We are holding on Daf Tzadik Hey Omen Beis, about 14 lines from the bottom. Amar Ravashi. Rashi said, Kehabina Bei Rav Kahana. When I was at the yeshiva of Rav Kahana, he asked a question. Rab Shimon the Amal Lemechzel Shish Levia Hu Deshakal Gazlan. Rab Shimon said that let's say someone steals an animal and it gets pregnant. So the animal's improvement, because now it's a pregnant animal, has to be split. Either half or a third goes to the Gazlan, or a quarter goes to the Gazlan. The Gazlan owns some part of that improvement, that shvach. So ki misal kinele, when the nigzal pays off the Gazlan, b'demei misal kinele, does he pay him off with cash? He can, or dilva mibsar shakel, or maybe the Gazlan really owns part of the animal, because it improved under his domain. It was lucky enough to get pregnant while it was in his stolen possession. So therefore, only when the nigzal will slaughter the animal, the gazlan will get part of the meat of the animal. So if he wants the meat of the animal, so he has his choice. He doesn't. The nigzal can't say, "Oh, take your check and I don't want to have anything to do with you." So that was the question: do you get money or do you get own part of the animal? And this was in the question to Rav Kahana. So when he answered, so from this statement of Shmuel, it says malin oisum bedomen. You could get rid of the person who did shevach, who had an improvement. You can just write them a check. So therefore, the Gazlan who owns part, according to Reb Shimon, owns half or a third or a quarter of that animal that he returned to the Nigzal, but now it's a pregnant animal, so he owns part of the improvement, part of that pregnancy. So we concluded that from Shmuel that the Nigzal could just give him money and say, Gazlan, go away. Ravina said to Ravashi, wait a second. One of these things that Shmuel said, a balchoiv will tell the purchaser that you can collect the shavach. So when the balchoiv foreclosed on a property that was bought by somebody, but that was bought from the loiva, and the balchoiv foreclosed on the property, Shmuel said that the balchoiv pays off the improvements on the property to the lekeach with money. So, but in another instance, Shmuel says that a balchoiv just collects the shavach, he just collects the improvements on the property and does not have to pay the lekeach. So this is just a side question seems to be a contradiction of Shmuel to Shmuel. Does the balchoiv who foreclosed on a property have to pay for the improvements that the purchaser did? Amalei. So Ravashi answered, Ravina loikash is not difficult. Kan b'shevach hamagil kasvayim. Kan b'shevach shemagil kasvayim. It depends. If the property, let's say, was improved upon, that it had produce that grew to its full ripening, so then you don't have to pay that. Then you have to pay to the purchaser. Either it's money or you give the shavach to the purchaser because he was the one that planted on that field. If it's the times that you don't have to pay when a balchoy forecloses on a property is when it just has a few fruits on it, but are not yet ripened. Amalei. So Ravina said to Ravashi, Shmuel was making sure that the balchoiv does pay for produce that did not yet ripen. So Shmuel required, who in many judgment cases, he was requiring that the balchoiv to pay for the shavach, not just keep it, like it says over here. Amalei. So finally, Ravashi answered, Loikash, it's not difficult. When does a balchoiv go to on top of the page here? Top of Tzadik Vav, depends. You just look at the loan. If the loan is the value of the property itself, so the shevach, the improvements on the property by planting it, is something that was more and beyond the loan. So then the balchoiv, after he forecloses on the property, should pay back the lekeach, he should pay back the purchaser for his improvements. But when doesn't he have to pay back is if his loan was really outstanding and it was a large loan, that not only if he, by foreclosing on the property plus the improvements, that would equal the amount of his loan, then he does not have to pay for the improvements. So the Gemara says, one last question on this, and then we'll move on. All this makes sense that the ball is in the court of the Baal Chayv. When he forecloses on a property, he could keep the property, and the purchaser cannot just say to the Baal Chayv, "Oh, you want to foreclose on my property? I'm going to give you money." If the Baal Chayv wants the property, it's his property. So really, the ball is in the Baal Chayv's court. According to the opinion that says if the purchaser of the property that had a lien on it wants to get rid of the Baal Chayv and say, "Listen, I want to pay you with money. You don't take my property." So why can't the purchaser say, "If I had money, so then you wouldn't have taken any part of my property. I would have just paid out the loan and not let you foreclose on the property. But now that you foreclose on the property and you have to pay me for my improvements that I did on the property, why should you be allowed to just pay me out in money, in cash? You should give me a piece of the property. Just give me a piece of that land according to the amount that I improved in the property. Since really the ball is in the Lekeach's court, where the Lekeach has the rights to the property. Malay. So he answered, when the loan came into fruition, it was originally because the person said, your property should only foreclose on this property, and did not give the right for the Baal Chayv to did not give a right for the Baal Chayv to the Lekeach to pay for the property. Again, today's daf is daf Tzadik Vav, and we're starting from daf Tzadik Vav Amar Aleph, about like 10 lines from the top. Easy Gemara, so very straightforward. So the Gemara, Omar Rava said, Kozal v'hishbiach u'mocha. A man stole a property. Let's say he stole a car. Okay, a man stole a car. And hishbiach, and he improved the car. He put in a new muffler in the car. So by putting in a new muffler in the car, so all he has to do is return to the person that he stole from the value of the car as he stole it, and he could keep the improved car. Okay, umachar, and then he sold the car to somebody else. Let's say v'gazel v'hishbiach. Let's say he stole a car v'hishbiach and improved upon the car again. Then he died, and now it's Yerusha. So whatever he improved upon the item that he stole, is he could sell. You don't have to return the shvach that you put into the car, and therefore your kids could keep it, or the person that inherited that, your kids could keep the shvach that you put, and also the person that purchased the car from you can keep it. And all you do is pay the nigzal back. And this is called takonish hashavim. We want to make it very easy for a guy that steals something to do tshuva. So we say, if the item that you stole is now an improved version of the item, so then you don't have to return that improved version and take a loss. You keep the item. Just pay the guy that you stole money. That's the thing. That's the takonis hashavim that we give to who? To the ganef. He has a easy pass. But Rava says, okay, what happens is what happens? You stole the car and you didn't improve it. You sold it to somebody else, and that somebody else improved the car. So does that person have to return the improved car back to the nigzal? Or we can say that, listen, if the ganef would have improved upon the car, he would not have to return it. So the purchaser that bought that rights from the ganef, he also would, even though takanas hashavim doesn't apply to him, he would also not have to return the shvach of the car. So after Rabba asked this question, he gave an answer. Ma mocha rishon l'sheni. Whatever a person's one guy, the first guy, sells to the second guy, Any benefit, any advantage he owns in the item that he sold it to the second guy. So therefore, the ganef, if he would have made shvach on the car, on the item he stole, he would not have to return it. So when he sells it right away to a purchaser, if that purchaser does the improvement, he would not have to return it straight to the nigzal. He could get to keep it as well. Says, okay, boy, Rava says that's the question. Hishbiach goy mahu. Let's say a goy stole an item. Let's say a goy stole a car and then improved upon the car. Does the goy have to return the improved car, or do we make takonis ashavim to the goy also? A goy ganaf, we make a leniency. Rav Acha from Difni said to Ravina, the kanta legoy nakiv and avid. We're going to make a easy for a goy. Don't make easy things for the goy. So therefore, goy, if he stole a car, improved the car, right? He put a new muffler or whatever he did to the car. When we catch him, we have to make him return the entire car and take the loss of improving a car that doesn't belong to him, because we don't make takanas shavim for a guy.
All right, that's what I think.
Yeah, Amalei. So then, what's your question? So let's ask an intelligent question. Amalei. So like tzricha, I'm going to ask Rava this question. Kigoyin dezabne Yisrael. If the guy stole a car and sold it to another yid, and that yid made the improvement, the yid made the improvement. So does the yid have to now return the car with the improvement back to the nigzal? So the Gemara says, certainly, the purchaser is not the ganav. The goy was the ganav. And soif, habo machmes goy, this came because the goy stole it. So harehu kagoy. So the purchaser, the yid, who purchased it from the goy, has all the rights of the goy, which is not many, because the goy ganav does not have the takanas hashavim rights, the leniency. So therefore, if he made a shvach, the goy would have to return it to the nigzal. So also, if the goy directly sold it to another yid, so then that yid would not have the rights of shvach of this item that was stolen. So then, what is a good question? Like tzricha, here's a good question.
Yeah.
Going to Gazal Yisrael, a yid stole. So the yid stole, let's say, a car. V'zabnen nahlei v'shbicha goy, and he sold it to a goy, and the goy put in a muffler into the car. So the goy made the shvach. V'had the guy, and then the guy went, V'zabne Yisrael, sold it to another yid. So what's the din? When that second yid, mi amrinim, do we say, Kivin the Mikar Yisrael, V'had Yisrael, Avdei Rabbanan Takanta. So since in the beginning it was stolen by a yid, so the yid was the ganav, and the purchaser was a yid, so the Rabbanan made the takana that the yid who has the car does not have to give the car back to the nigzal, because it's an improved version of the car. So therefore, so he could get to keep the car. But maybe since it went like this, a yid stole the car, a goy did the improvement, and then resold it to another yid. So it went in three ways. Even the ika goy be'emtza, since there's a goy in the middle of this whole transaction, loy avdi rabbanan takanta, the rabbanan didn't make it easier, and therefore the shvach, this improved version of the car that ended up by the second yid, he would have to take it and bring it back to the person that was stolen from. Teku, the Gemara leaves this unresolved. Now we go back to discussing what is called a shinui. Remember, if you change an item, you don't have to return it. You can just write a check. Look at this case. Umar Papa said, Hayman de gzal dikle mechavre ukteli. A guy stole a palm tree from his friend and cut it down. He cut down a palm tree and then replanted it in his property. He took it from the land that he stole from and planted it in his own land. Loy kani. He's not koina. That's not his tree. And in fact, when he has to return, he has to uproot the tree from his property and bring it back to where he stole it from. My tama, what's the reason? Mi'ikara dikla mikri. In the beginning, you stole a palm tree. V'hashtanami, and now that you planted it in your place, dikla mikri, it's still called a palm tree. And this is very different than, let's say you steal an animal and it gets older. Animal gets older, looks older, it gets weaker. A tree is not that way. And if you uproot a tree from somebody's property and replant it in your property, when you want to do tshuva, you have to return the tree back. because there's no shinui there. What happens, Dikli, you stole a palm tree, Vaviguvi, and you made it into rings. You cut it into into pieces, loikani. You're not kaina. Why? Hashta miyas guvi de dikli maker. It's called slices of a palm tree. So there's no real change in that. You just cut. But what happens, Guvi? You cut it into pieces. Vavdini kishuri, and then you finished it off to make it into beams. Kani. Then you kind it because you have to varnish it or whatever you did. So therefore, it's not the same item that you stole. You stole wood pieces and you made it into a beam. Kishuri ravare vavdini kishuri zitri. Let's say you stole a big beam and you cut it down for a small beam. Loikani, then you're not coining it. Why? Because it's still the same beam. You just shortened it. Avdinin kitsyusa, but if you turn it into wall panels, so originally it was a roof beam, and you changed it, the dimensions of it, so it now can only be used as a wall panel. So you changed it. Kani, then the Ganav acquires it. So the Gemara, Omar Rova said, "Hi man, the gazel lulav. A man stole a kosher lulav. Vavdine hutzi. Well, I guess he didn't steal a kosher lulav. He stole a lulav branch. Vavdine hutzi. I'm sorry. He stole a kosher lulav, and then he ripped off the leaves. So he has a kosher lulav, and then separated all the leaves. Can't require it. The mikara lulav and mikre. First, it's a kosher lulav. V'hashta hutzi. Now it's not kosher anymore because you peeled it apart, right? Hutzi, but let's say you stole just leaves of a lulav, right? Severed leaves of a lulav. So it's not really a kosher lulav. V'avdine chufya, and you turn that into a broom, right? So if you made that into a broom, Kani, you acquire it. Mikara hutzi. First, it's called regular leaves. V'hashta, now you took it chufya and you made it into a palm, into a broom. What happens? Chufya, you took a broom, v'avdei shashura, and you made it into like a rope. I don't know how you took it, but you undid the broom and you twisted all the pieces and you made it into a rope. Like kani not kainit, my tama, because the hodder soser le b'havi chufya. You could take it apart again and turn it back into a broom. Any shinui, any change that could come back to its original form, you're not kaina. So that's the rule. Only a permanent change is a kinyan. Boy Rapapa had a question. You stole a kosher lulav. Now, every lulav in the middle leaf of the lulav is called the tuyumas, the twin leaf. It's like it has two leaves kissed together. And what Rapapa said, what happens if you split apart? If you stole a lulav and you split it apart. So basically, what Rapapa is asking is, if the middle leaf splits apart, is it still a kosher lulav? If it's still a kosher lulav, then you didn't do anything. But if it splits apart and now it's not kosher, then you're not kainit. So then you're kainit because you stole a kosher lulav and now it's not kosher. Tashma, come in here. The Amar Masan, Amar Rabbi Shua Levi. Rabbi Shua Levi said, Nitla hatuyumas. If you have a lulav that the middle leaf has disappeared, puzzle, it's puzzle. So if somehow someone took a scissors and cut the middle leaf that's in the lulav, you spread it apart and you cut the middle leaf, so then it's puzzle. We go to my love. Wouldn't that be so? Because huadin lenechleka, that if you split the leaves, you kept the tiyumas there, but you just ripped it apart, that also would be the same halacha, that the lulav now becomes puzzle. And therefore, again, if you steal a kosher lulav and make it puzzle, you were kind of that with shinoi. So basically the question is cutting the middle leaf the same as just splitting it apart? And so the Gemara loy nitlashani, taking it is different. When it's missing, it's a non-kosher lulav, the chosele, because it's missing. But if it just splits a little bit and it splits down the middle, that's not considered a choser, missing lulav, and therefore it will still remain kosher, and that's it. They have these lulavs, the dairy lulavs, that they grow a certain way that they never split. But normally, when people are looking at a lulav to check if it's kosher, they're looking how big the split of the. Others say Tashma. The Amar Rab Masan Amar Reb Shua Levi. If it does split, Nasa Kamisha Nitla, it has the same halacha as if it was cut upaso. So that's very interesting. So therefore, some people, according to this halacha, are very makbid to have the tiyumis to be connected all the way to the top. And that's a chumrah. You could have it a little bit of split, but here it says if it's split, it's as if you don't have a tiyumis, and the lulav would be puzzle. Shma mina. Amar Rapapa said, "Hi man, the gozel afra. A man stole dirt. Ba'avde, and he turned the dirt leveinsa into a brick. Loikana. He did not coin it. Why? A mud brick. You know how they make these mud bricks? My tama. What's the reason? Because it's easily can be turned back from a brick back into dirt. So therefore you didn't make a permanent change. But what happens if you stole? If you stole if hold on, if you stole a if you stole a brick for avde afra, and then you made it into dirt. So you stole a brick and you made it into dirt, kani. Why? Why should you be kind it? Can't you turn a piece of dirt back into a mud brick? My amret dimul halder va'avid le'levinusa. You're saying that you could still turn it back into a brick, so you should not be kind it. That's not a shinui. Answers the Gemara, it is a change because hai levenusa achritehu. When you change it back into a mud brick, it's a different brick, because it's never going to be the same size and the exact dimensions that you had your previous brick here. Upanim chadashis kan. It's a brand new brick. It's a new face. And therefore, you made a permanent change by turning the brick into dirt, and therefore you acquire that dirt. V'amar Papa said, "Hi man, the gozel nascha machavri." A man steals a piece of a bar of silver from his friend. V'alved zuze, and he turned it into money. He turned it into coins. Loikani. Now, why? Because my tama hada avid like nascha. You can melt down the coins and turn it back into a bar of silver. So you didn't really steal it. You didn't make the change, a permanent change. But what happens if you steal zuze, silver coins, vavdinin nascha, and you turned it into a silver bar? Kani, you acquired it. Why? My amrit. What are you going to say? Hadar avid lahu zuze. You're going to turn it back into coins. You turned it into a silver bar. And now you're going to turn it back into coins. Panim chadashus bolokan, it's a brand new face, because you'll never get the dimensions and the size of the first coin that it was prior to it turning into a silver bar. So therefore, that is considered a permanent change. When you take coins that have a certain size and a certain dimension and a certain thickness, and you turn it into a bar of silver, it can never be returned back to the original coins. Next Gemara. Shchime, you stole dark coins, and you turned it into new coins. That means you shined it up. Loikana, you're not acquiring it, because that's not a big change. You just you just made it new and you took off the schmutz, but it's really an old coin. Chadete, but let's say you have a brand new coin, and you made it a dark coin. You made it full of dirt. Kani, then you coined those coins. My Amrit, what are you going to say? You could wash it off and make it like a brand new coin again. That doesn't work. You can tell that it was an old coin. If you look closely, no matter how much you're going to clean it off its dirt, it's still going to look like a little yellowish. And because of that, therefore, you can never turn it back into a new coin. Therefore, if you have a new coin and you made it like yellowish, oldish, you acquired it because it's a shinui that can never go back to its original state. Zahaklal, we learned in the Mishnah, Kola Gazlonim, Mishalmin Kashas Hagzela. When you steal something, you want to pay back, you pay back the value of the item that you stole as it was at the time that you stole it. So that's the rule. Latuyamai, usually our general rule comes to include a certain case. That means a shinoi is koina. That if a change, the Mishnah is implying that if you make a change, you're koina. Now, a change could be a physical change. Of course, you physically change the item. But sometimes you didn't physically change the item and it will still be yours. What's the case that you didn't change the item and it changes on its own? Rabbi Eloi said, Gonav Tala, if you steal a sheep, a baby sheep, Benasa Ayel, and it grew up to be a ram. Egel, you steal a calf, Benasa Shor, and became a cow. So in the hands of the Goslin, it changed. So who owns this animal? So the Rabbi Loi said, "Nasna shinoi biyodai." The change happened in the domain of the gazlan. Uknoi, and the gazlan now owns this animal, and therefore tabach hamacha. If he shechted the animal or sold it, now normally if it was the nigzal's animal, you would pay dal v'hei. But here it's not the nigzal's animal anymore because it turned into a ram or turned into an ox. Shaloihu teveach, shaloihu meicha. It's his animal that he slaughtered and his animal that you sold. So he's owned the gazlan, so therefore there's no dalet v'hei because it becomes his animal. So here's a change that happened on his own, and it's still called a change, and that is what the Mishnah is trying to add on at the end of the Mishnah. Says the Gemara a story. Hahu Gavra, there was this man, the Gazel Pander de Turim Mechavre. He stole a group of oxen from his friend. What did he do with the oxen? Azel Krarev Be Krava. He went and with the oxen that he stole and plowed up his property. Zara, and then he planted. Lesoif, in the end, Ahidrinhu Lemari. He said, "Here's your oxen back the way I stole it." So this guy is a real chevraman because he stole it, used it, and now returned it. Also, the Kamma de Rabbi Nachman. So he came to Rabbi Nachman. Amalei, he said, "Zil shumish shvachid ashbach." He wanted to make the gazlan pay for the improvements that the gazlan used the item to improve his own property. Let's say the gazlan had a property. He stole oxen, and now it became worth more. The amount that it's worth more, that belongs to the nigzal because you used his oxen to create value in your property. Amalei Rava, so Rava said, is it only the oxen that improved the value of the property of the gazlan? It was the property itself also. Tura ashbach, aralei ashbach. Was it the oxen that made the property worth more and not the land itself of the gazlan? Certainly the land had what to do with the property becoming worth more. It wasn't just the oxen that made it worth more. Amar, so Rav Nachman said, yes, mi akamin shaimi kuli. Did I want to make the gazlan pay for everything? The entire improvements? The entire benefit that he got? Palga kamina. I only wanted to make him pay half. So let's say the property improved $500. So Rav Nachman wanted to make the guy who stole the oxen to plow his land with and then return it to pay the $250. Amalei, so Rava still didn't like Rav Nachman's psak. Soif gzeli. The man stole it. The kahadra be'ene, and he returned the oxen. The Tana, we learned in the Mishnah, kol ha'gazlon misham k'shas gzela. If you steal something, you pay back the thing that you stole as it was worth at the time that you stole it. So apparently, maybe these oxen didn't go down in value, and he's returning oxen. He just used it for his own benefit. So why does he have to pay for just the use that he used the oxen that he stole? So really, that should be the halacha. You don't have to pay for that. But Rav Nachman, Amalei, so Rav Nachman told Rava, Lo yaminalach, didn't I tell you many times? Don't disturb me. When I'm sitting in court, don't tell me anything. The Amma Huna Chavren Alai. Huna, our friend, said about me, Ana, myself. That means Rav Nachman is saying, me, Rav Nachman, Ushwar Malka, and Shmuel, who's a friend of the king, Ache Bidina, are like master judges. So I know what I'm doing. I'm requiring this Ganav to pay half the improvements he benefited from stealing those oxen. And he told him quietly, Hi Enish Gazlona Atiku. This guy that's in my court, he's an old Ganav. And therefore, I'm not letting him get away with stealing somebody's oxen and then using it and then returning the oxen, knowing and saying that I don't have to pay for the use of the oxen. Or Ba'ina the Iknese. I want to punish him and penalize him for stealing somebody else's oxen. Let's do the Mishnah and then a little bit of the Gemara, and then we'll stop in 2 minutes. Gozel behema, a man steals an animal. V'hiskina, and the animal got old. Is that a change? Avodim, he stole a slave. V'hiskinu, and the slave got old. Let's say he stole a slave that was 40 years old. Now it's 50 years old. Mishalim kishas gzela. Then you don't give the slave back or the animal back. You pay the value of the animal or the slave that you stole. But Rameir says, Ba'avadim, by slave, you could actually give it back as it is, as an old slave. Aimalei can say, here's your slave back. And the reason is because an Evet is like land, and land is never really stolen. It still retains the ownership, so to speak, of the person who owns that slave. Like land is not really stolen, it just remains the owner of of whoever owns the land, and therefore it got old in the domain not of the ganef but of the victim, and therefore Rameir says by avodim you could say here's your slave back. Gozel matbeya, if you steal a coin, penizdak, and now the coin has a hole in it. Paris, you steal fruits, verkivui, and the Paris itself, the fruits rotted. Yayin, you steal wine, vehechmitz, and it became vinegar. Mishalim kishas gzela, you pay the value of it as it was when you stole it, because obviously you stole something more valuable, and now it went down in value. What happens, matbei, you stole a coin, vinifsal, and then the country went bust. So the coin that you stole is still a good coin. It's just that the country doesn't have that coin anymore. Or true, so that's a hezek shein nikar. You can't really see that it's damaged. Here, you steal truma, benitmes, and the truma became tame. The truma, the truma looks like truma. It just has a tuma on it. Chametz, you steal chametz, v'aval of Pesach, and now Pesach passed over it, and therefore the chametz is now aser bahana. But the chametz looks good, right? But still, it's a hezek she'ena nikar, a damage that you can't really tell. Behema benis abraba avera. Let's say you steal an animal, and somebody did an avera with it. Let's say slept with the animal or something like that. Now this animal cannot be used as a carbon. Or he turned it into an avodah zarah. Now this animal has to be stoned. Or it had like a blemish, a non-noticeable blemish. Now you can't bring it as a carbon. Now it's being stoned because it did something. It killed a human being. All these things, the thing that you stole looks good. It looks as if it looks like what it was when you stole it, but it now has a halacha thing on this animal that it has to be stoned or you can't benefit from it. So you can say to the ganav, here's your animal back, here's your coin that I stole back, here's your truma back, although be it, you should know it's tame. It's tame. So it's a hezek shein nikar. Amar Rapapa said, and another minute. Don't say that if you steal an animal, it became old, and that's the only way you have to pay the original animal that you stole. Even if the animal became a weakened animal, let's say the animal lost weight, so then you also keep the animal. You keep the animal, and you have to pay kishas hagzela, and a new animal as it was worth at the time that you stole it. Says the Gemara, a question against Rapapa. Vanan hiskina tanan. But didn't we learn hiskinan tanan that only if the animal came old, then you pay a new animal. But if the animal became weaker, then you just give him back his animal. So the answer is kachasha kagoin hiskina delahar debari. We're talking about a case. Rapapa is talking about a case that if the animal became weaker, like it aged. In other words, sometimes, and just like when an animal ages, you can't turn back the clock. Sometimes the animal got sick.
The family saves almost $1,000 a year. It's a veteran-owned company. There's patriots. Their customer service department.
So now, the Gemara concludes, Amalei Makashisha, B'Rav Chizul, Rav Ashi, Hachi Kamma Mishmei Rav Yochanan, Afila Gon of Tlev and Asa Ayel, Egel ben Asa Shar. If you steal a sheep and it became a ram, or a calf and it became a ox, Nasa Shini Biyadi Yakani, you kind of that animal. And he said this statement in the name of Rav Yochanan. Concludes the Gemara, you have to be careful who you repeat the statement from. Amalei, Lava Minalach, didn't I tell you? He told Rabashi told Mar Kashisha, Loi Tachlich Gari, don't mix things up. It wasn't Rabbi Yochanan who said, Gonav Tlev and Asa Ayel, Egel ben Asa Shar, Hahu Shmeid Rabbi Eloi Itma. That Rabbi Eloi was the one that stated that. So you have to be very careful to say the statement the way it was heard, the way the actual person that made that statement. Okay, we finished Tzadik Vav.